We have a wonderful, indeed honor today to have Dr. Gary Richman with us. And as many of you know, Dr. Gary's been a member of our community for how many years? Any idea, Gary? 20-some years? He's been a member of our Board of Stewards. He's led our circle group here for many years. And he also, that happens after our service, of course. And he also had a radio program. What was the name of that program?
Heart and Soul.
Heart and Soul, with Dr. Bill for many years on radio. It's a wonderful weekly program that many of us listen to. So he's been a part of this community for a long time. He's also been in service as a professional therapist. He has a PhD in clinical psychology and has certainly been of service to me in times of my life when I needed help. I remember one time when I had a young, very strong, headstrong teenager, my son, and Dr. Gary gave me a little tape that he had made called Surviving Adolescence. I thought it was for Jonathan, for my son. It was for me, surviving, yeah. And it was wonderful, and he also counseled both Jonathan and I. So he's been a wonderful member of this community. We're just really fortunate to have him with us today. So please welcome Dr. Gary, and he requests that after his talk that we not applaud. Thank you. Dr. Gary.
Good morning. Good morning. Oh, sip of water. We have a monitor up here now. Being a visual person and dyslexic, I may get distracted, so just yell at me or something to get me back focused. Did you feel the ripple in the force when David was doing his treatment? He said, Dr. Gary's going to be speaking. People went like, what? I didn't get the email on that. It turned out, and for those of you who are wondering if Dr. Bill is okay, he is. He was getting back very late last night from the Hampton conference, and so he had a last-minute thought and called me Wednesday and left a message saying, I'd really like you to speak for me on Sunday. And when I took a deep breath and had to think about that, I called Colleen up and I said, did you know Dr. Bill was not going to be speaking Sunday? And I could feel her head spin around. And I said, how long do I have before I have to let you know that? She said, I need to know right now.
So take your time.
I said, exactly. I said, oh. So I said, okay, I can probably do that. And of course, Colleen being the great admin person she is, she went, and what's the topic so I can get it out there? I said, I'm just getting my head around speaking on Sunday. And what I thought about was when Bill and I did a talk about a month ago called The Hub of the Wheel, we both sat up here and talked about focusing inward to one's own vulnerability. We had a clip that we didn't get to use because there was a lot of stuff going on that we were speaking about. And one of my new favorite movies is The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. It's a Dan Milliman story. Dan Milliman wrote The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and it's a movie you can get as well as the book. And we're going to show a clip today about it, and we're going to talk more about that because I've been watching it now about 5 or 6 times. Because it's like those Eastern books, you know, there's something always there you kind of pick up as you move along or hear it again. So I thought about the peaceful warrior, and I said to Colleen, how about we talk about the spiritual warrior? She went, what a great topic. And I went, yeah, I have to figure out what I'm going to say about it. And then, so I thought about it, and we throw around, Bill and I talked last time about centering, and we throw, in the 70s, threw that word around all the time. And we talk about spiritual warrior, and we throw that word around, those 2 words around all the time. And I thought about, well, what is that really? And what was Dan Milliman talking about as he talked about the way of the peaceful warrior? Because it seems like an oxymoron. It seems like, on one hand, spiritual. Well, that's expanding, focused, centered, giving up or moving aside the ego, about being in the present moment, being truly vulnerable, and really attending to a higher aspect of our own self. And then you have warrior. I went guarded up, armored, with a sword, fighting, dueling, conflictual, out there winning, taking, no prisoners. I went like, wow, Talk about a yin-yang. I mean, how do you bring those together? And then as I watched the movie as well, and I'll be paraphrasing some things, having a PhD, we think about not being plagiaristic. So just letting you know I'm going to quote those things. And I realized spiritual warrior, what it's about, and Bill's talked about this as well, that courage is not the absence of fear, but moving in spite of it. And that's what the spiritual warrior does. That to move into vulnerability, focus, center, the present, letting go of our minds, emptying out, as you'll hear in the Peaceful Warrior, emptying out the trash that defines us so that we can really drop into center. And actually my second book is called The Road to Me Too, Dumping the Trash. So I was kind of like, oh, that was cool. And thinking about the fact that do all that takes so much courage, and the definition and dedication and discipline and standing up in face of odds is what the warrior does on the spiritual journey, because everything around us demands that we don't do that. And if you don't think so, just tap yourself or set your watch as a half hour after you leave church, wherever you are in the world, and see how centered, focused, present, and available you are to self. It goes like that, because everything in our world is to not do that, to not be present, to not be, as you're going to hear in this tape, in the movie, completely vulnerable, to not be present, to not even really speak the truth. The world doesn't want to hear your truth. It wants to hear what it wants from you. It wants to hear how you fit in, how you become a part of us, how you speak what I want to hear, how you don't upset, how you don't really engage, how you don't cause difficulty. And to stay present in the midst of all that. I mean, you all know more of what that's like, or you wouldn't be sitting in this church. This church wouldn't resonate for you. So many of you are on that path already, and the people who are new, you're stepping on that path. And guess what? Those of you newbies, you're realizing really what it means to be a spiritual warrior and have that courage. Because everything inside of you goes, I don't know that I want to do that. There's this tug going on like, no, you do. Carlos Castaneda wrote books in the 70s, and in Separate Reality talked about having one of these really painful experiences of the other world with Don Juan, and he said, this is too scary. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I want to keep walking in this. Don Juan said, well, step off. He went, no. It's more awful over there. It's just really scary on this part. And we do have scary moments. And if you choose to stream or rent the Peaceful Warrior, you will hear him talking about that too. He says, I don't know if I have the courage for this. I don't know if I have the strength for this. Well, what does that mean? Strength and courage to be a spiritual warrior. Because it scares us. And guess what? What scares us most is we're stepping out of norm. We're stepping out of the mainstream. We're stepping out of what most people are going to relate to. So guess what? As people I work with say to me, they go, Gary, I'm really enjoying what's going on internally, but I'm losing all my friends. I said, I know. I said, do you know why? They go, no, but it's really annoying and I'm feeling really scared. I get it. Because you chose all these people from this chapter of your life. You'll see who are really your friends, who can really honor your new steps, your new path, your new perspective. But a lot won't. People who need you to rescue them, they're going to be really annoyed because you're stopping rescuing them. People need to have all the talking and have you just listen all the time. Now you're starting to express yourself and say, I don't have much interest in this conversation. Like what? People who you've been kowtowing to and showing up to be exactly who they want you to be, which I talk to my patients, I say, oh, you've got the chameleon syndrome. Where you're changing colors every moment to meet other people's needs. You stop doing that. people start drifting away. You're not feeding me the way I used to. What's up with this? What happened to you? I think that therapist is out of his mind. You should stop seeing him. I have a lot of husbands and wives saying that to their partners. Who is this guy? And why are you seeing him? It's been way too long. What's happening to you? And the answer is me. I'm happening. I am actually starting to sit in a deeper center of myself that has no interest anymore in someone who isn't honoring what I'm starting to love and appreciate and honor in myself. And a lot of people don't want to hear that. You think I'm wrong, just half of you have been on this path a long time. You already lost those guys. They're out of your lives. You know that. Some of them really hurt your feelings because, again, guess what they do? When you're not paralleling the old path, they pull out what society does. It keeps us, and your mind keeps you from centering and focusing, which is shame and judgment. You get a lot of shame and judgment. What happened to you? You used to be nice. You used to be available. You used to be there for me. Well, I'm still there for you, just differently. Yeah, but I don't want that. That's not going to work for me. You got to shape up. Well, I thought I was, just not in the way you like. And so the spiritual warrior is about being that presence. So what does that mean? That means the old saying, the past is history, future's a mystery, and all you have is the gift of being present. That's a spiritual warrior, because in giving up the past, what do? You give up judgment, you give up shame, you give up resentment, you give up the guilt, you give up a sense that I did it wrong. You give up that which plagues you and holds you back. You have to give that up. Well, again, half hour after you leave here, see how much judgment, shame, and opinions are out there. And the mind doesn't like it either. And giving up the future, poof, I can't do it. I won't succeed. They won't like me. I'll be left alone. I'll die alone. I won't have anyone around. I won't be cared about. No one's really going to love me. No one will hire me. Certainly not going to give me raises. All that fear that's of the future. Well, if you're in the past or you're in the future, which most of us are most of the time, maybe not all of us, but very much out there, and we all struggle with it, because as I always say when I get up here, I say in circle group, it makes them laugh. I go, I don't see anybody wearing orange robes and shaved heads in here. So in that we're all still personalities, we still struggle with that. Me too. Me too. I woke up this morning, I'll share and be vulnerable. I woke up this morning, which I do every morning when I'm going to talk at church, even with Bill and I go, what did I say yes to that for? I could have been watching the news and having coffee or sitting on the deck, playing with my dog. I had to get up early, I had to take a shower, I had to put on some clothes because we're streaming now. And I got to figure out what to say, and I never, as Bill and I always say, we don't plan these things. I told Colleen, I said, I spend the first 5 minutes just kind of stalling, waiting for the channel to kick in. It's here now. And you see it in Bill, if you watch carefully. Bill will get up and he says, good morning, and how are you? And, blah, blah. And he starts, and then you see him you watch, his energy goes like this, and he goes like that. And I'm kind of there now. Makes me very tired later on because it's hard to channel at these levels. But fun. Right now I'm having fun. This is good. Because I'm very present in this with all of you. And it that I invited to talk today as I'm standing over there somewhere is having a fun time sharing. And so it's really hard to give up or even mitigate the past and the future and stay present. That's the courage. Because no one, including your brain, wants you to do that. And everything about outside there, look at the news. They have spent 24/7 for 6 months talking about what might happen. I mean, let's talk about one of them. God, I just had that thought. Let's talk about one of them. I'm not going to get into politics. Just the fun part. What was all the fear base of the future? Trump won't get enough delegates, and there's going to be a rivalry and craziness at the Republican convention, and he's inviting rioting. You hear all that fear? You hear all that energy? The news spent weeks, probably more, worrying, fretting, telling us about it, amping up the fear of, oh my God, what's going to happen in Cleveland? And what happened? We're now looking more at the Democratic convention, what's going to happen. Because Bernie's going, I'm not going down fight, I'm going down fight. All of that angst meant nothing. Nothing. All that energy, Trump's, the news media, the pundits, people, it meant nothing. Because no one's in the present. No one's sitting in the moment. And that's the expended craziness, angst, and ridiculousness of fear. I mean, it's here right now. I mean, not here, but in that example. We don't have to look that far. And so, it is about staying present. That's the courage. That's the discipline. That's the focus. That's the dedication of the warrior being spiritual. It's kind of a hoot when you think of it that way. And it's all about what that is really being. And what is it that, I mean, I keep mentioning this because everyone's on the same track. I am so, you have this epiphany and all of a sudden everybody's got it too and they start talking about it. All the people who are speaking lately are doing it. I mentioned it last time when Bill and I were here. David G's talking about it. Adeshante's talking about it. Miranda McPherson's talking about it. I'm talking about it. Bill's talking about it. And years ago, Hugh Lynn came here and talked about it. And a year before that, I always get his name wrong, Stuart Mooney was here talking about it. And the thing he said is, he sat down there. I haven't gotten to that point yet. I'm working on that. When I just sit down and just chat with y'all. I don't know that my channel will sit. I think it channels better than standing. And you notice the news media is doing that. They're standing more than they're sitting. I don't know what that's about. I can't figure it out. Anyway, Stuart said, what's the goal? What is the thing we're here to do? And everybody was kind of quiet. I'm running through my head, right? I want to come up with the right answer. And I'm going like, well, center, focus, discipline, present. And he goes, to be nothing. And I went, oh yeah, forgot about that one. But it's so profound, because if you're in the present and you give up all the garbage in your head that defines you and tells you what it is. What I tell my patients is, they go like, Gary, I got in a place where I just don't even know anymore. I go, that's great. Because for me, when you don't know anymore, that's the beginning of wisdom. And I was chuckling because he said that in the Peaceful Warrior. When you don't know anymore who you are, your definition, owning your name as defining you, owning your culture, your gender, your traditions, your history, when you are in the present of just being, you're really being that nothingness from which you can attend to everything. Because when you've given up all the stuff, the judgment, the shame, the supposed to's, what I call, as Emerson said, shoulding on yourself, where you should do this and should do that. You know, the coulda, woulda, oughtas, shoulds. We do that one all the time. That one. When you sit there, then you get to be truly here in self. And when you're truly here in self, what I say in my book is that you start to have X-ray vision. Because I talk about the gifts of what happened when you give up the trash. And one of them is X-ray vision. What I mean by that is you sense people. I walked up to someone, said, Gary, could I talk to you this morning? And I looked at him and I said, oh my God, what's going on? People walk down the hallway from the waiting room to my office and I go, oh, we got a lot to talk about. And they go, what? How'd you know that? We all have that capacity to do that. All of us. Every one of us. It's not ESP, it's not psychic. There are aspects of that as well. But it's our ability to be open and not with agenda. To be in the nothingness of the spiritual warrior. Being. How many times have you heard, don't be a human doing, be a human being? It's true. The world wants us to be human doings. You're doing something all the time. People come to me and they go, Gary, I can't meditate. I have no idea how to do that. I can't sit quietly. What's up with me? I said, it's too scary for you to turn inward and look at who you believe you're not because of what you've been told. And we have a lot of work to do. And that's what we do. You can't meditate, you can't sit still. It's because you're terrified of being vulnerable with yourself. You're terrified that what you're going to find is the messages, the trash that you were given growing up of who you're not. And it's not so. It's not so. We are grand, abundant beings of God. And all the universe wants to do is gift us. Here's the play on words. If we stay present. So, I'm seeing things are getting a little on in time. So Miriam, why don't we... Oh, I also want to let you know, you guys got some wonderful people here. Colleen and Miriam rallied to this last minute, oh my God, we got to do this. And they did. And I really want to thank them. They were great. Because I could do this on my own, but I wouldn't want to have to. So I get to watch this on here. So what I'm going to do is show you, it's called a motivational tape. If you want to just get a sense of the Peaceful Warrior, there's tons of it on YouTube, let alone, Dan Milliman is a real person. He wrote The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, and he does talks. There's a TED Talk he does, and a couple of interviews he does, and talking about the mentor he had. As Bill and I said, one of the ways to truly drop into vulnerability, where you can only do that if you feel safe. You cannot do what I'm talking about, cheerleading in front of a mirror. You cannot do it. You need a mentor. It's like having a martial art expert break bricks. You don't know you can do it until you watch someone do that. A mentor is terribly important to help you walk a path. And Dan finds this person he calls Socrates. And Socrates is mentoring him as he's a Class A gymnast at Berkeley on the track to the Olympics, has a scholarship and is all about winning and goals and achieving. And he starts to walk a spiritual path with Socrates, which totally, as we all know when we started on this path, turns us around. Okay, Mira. Now I'm going to ask you to stop it at certain points.
Mine's just a reflex organ. Reacts to everything. Fills your head with millions of random thoughts a day. None of those thoughts reveal any more about you than a freckle does at the end of your nose.
All that trash and those things in your head don't define you any more than the freckle on your nose. And yet how many of us think our resume is who we are? I tell my patients all the time, I say, I'm a psychologist, but that's what I do. That's not who I am. And we get into so much defining ourselves by that, instead of staying in the nothingness of the quantum field and being, which is very scary, because if I'm not a guy, if I'm not a psychologist, if I'm not Gary, if I'm not reasonably well educated, if I'm not a spiritualist, if I'm not someone who can get in front of people and not sweat to death, who am I? And there's a book that's great that I think they have in the Mind Shop called I Am That. And it deals a lot with the Upanishads and Hinduism, but it is about just, though just is a ridiculous word, being. Thanks, Mary. Go ahead.
Take out the trash. The trash is anything that is keeping you from the only thing that matters. That's the first part of your training. Learning to throw out everything you don't need in here.
How?
This moment. Here. Now.
Okay, hold it, Mary. This is the scene when he just heard from Socrates as he tapping his head going, that's not what you need, that's not what's so. Get rid of that. Be here, be now, in every moment. The Tibetan Book of Living and Dying speaks to that. It talks about embracing the finite, embracing that we are all going to die. In every day, embrace that this is one more day to be grateful, to be blessed, to be focused, to be here now. If some of you are I'd like you to realize, as you're listening to me, your mind isn't going anywhere else. There isn't the PG&E bill, or where you're going to have lunch, or who you sing later, or the Warrior game coming on, or anything like that. What's going on is that you are here right now. And what's going on for Milliman is he gets the moment of that in this epiphany where he's holding his hand out as he's taking a shower, just experiencing the water, just staring at it in the moment. And what happens after that in the movie, he goes out and tries out, because there was an opening on the pommel horse, and he does a routine where his coach goes, where did that come from? And he was just in that moment. But the moment doesn't last, because he goes to Socrates and he's all thrilled with himself. He goes, oh my God, I kicked their butts. I was so good. I did a thing that I used your trick. Exactly. And Socrates looking at him and looking at him and looking at him, and then when he's quiet, he goes, it's not a trick. You were in the moment, and you're not there now because it's all about your ego and bragging and how you did so well and were so great. And we all do this. I had an amazing epiphany once. I was in Big Sur with some people in the forest. And I was with a woman who is, I call her the female Buddha. I've known her for 30 years. She's incredible. And I dropped into this place with her where I really was one with the forest. There are 2 times in my life I've experienced that nirvana actually exists. And what did I do with it? First, the second time I was clear, I went, okay, don't mess up, don't get into your head, don't get in your, just sit. And I was actually here in church, someone was speaking and I went right out. And it was incredible. But in that moment, it was the first time I ever experienced it. What did I do? I went, is this cool? Oh my God, it's like I get what animals feel. They're one with everything. They're just in the moment. My moment stopped about 5 minutes later because we get so like, look what I did. I know, because it's so immediate. It's so immediate because first of all, we've reached something we've wanted, we've been intentioning, and then you get into that place. So Dan is sitting there, but he goes right to his ego and how well he did. Okay, Maren.
And when you truly are in the here now, you'll be amazed at what you can do, and how well you can do it.
When you're in the present, you'll be amazed what you can do and how well you can do it. He's retraining after having a seriously horrible motorcycle accident. And Socrates is asking him to get back into himself. But he says, you're amazed. If we let go of that future, I can't do it. I won't succeed. Write a book. I'm dyslexic with reading disorders. They told me I would never be able to go to college. I've written 3 books. It's like you have to get out of yourself. But the fear is, are you kidding? Can't do that. They won't like it. I won't be liked. All those fears. But if you get out of here, you're in the moment of doing. And when you're in the moment of what you're actually meant to do, Deepak Chopra says we're all born with a gift. We're all born to bring it to the world. And when we get out of our way of resentments or fears, we are it. And you know what they call that in society because they want to make it like, oh, yeah, you had a moment of that. That was just lucky. Anybody not heard of the sweet spot? When you're dancing, when you're skiing, when you're talking, when you're doing some activity, when you're painting, creating art. The sweet spot is that place where you're out of time, out of your being, into your center, in your gift glowing. And you all know it. And it's all very cool, and that's part of it. Go ahead, Mary.
When you feel fear, use the sword. Take it up here and cut the mind to ribbons. Slash through all those regrets and fears. Anything else that lives in the past or the future.
So what was going on there is that he had a kind of illusion where he was at top of Sather Tower, which is the tower where the clock is at Berkeley. And he's holding on to himself in the illusion because he's attempting, though scared, to let go of the self that is in the past, that is about his ego. And if you watch the movie, I know I'm blowing it because I'm telling you about it, so you may not have to watch it, but the being that he's letting go says, "Who do you think you are without me? Who are you going to be without me? You need me." And what that is he's letting go of fear and regret and his identity and who he is as gymnast and his competitions and his rivalries and his bloated sense of self. And he lets it go to start to just be. Go ahead, Mary.
Life is choice. You can choose to be a victim or anything else you'd like to be.
Just ignore what happened to me.
A warrior acts, only a fool reacts. A warrior does not give up what he loves. He finds the love in what he does.
A warrior doesn't give up what he loves. He finds the love in what he does. This person's hopes, and this is a true story. I mean, probably some poetic, license to it, but and they didn't happen, his Olympic possibilities were gone. And Socrates is now asking him, as he's been learning to give up, he wants to now be of service and be on the path, and he wants to give up doing the gymnastics because he can't get where he wanted to go. And Socrates says, you have to not give up what you're doing. He says, just forget what happened to me? He says, no, don't forget what happened to you. It happened. We get to have our feelings and be vulnerable with that. But to not, he says, a warrior acts, not reacts. And I said, wow, where in nature do I see that? And I thought this bizarre thing, I'm a dog person, and I thought about, we've all seen a three-legged dog walking around. It's still walking. It isn't whining. It isn't crawling. It probably gets a little sad and depressed if it could speak when it starts to run with the other dogs and they outrun it. We get to be vulnerable and sad that some of things are limiting, that some things aren't meant to be as we thought they would be, which is often a gift. And we get to be in our nature. You don't stop walking because you lose a leg. You don't stop being a gymnast if that's what his birthright is. And it was. He was in gymnastics since he was a child. A warrior doesn't give up what he loves. He finds love, not conditions, not goals, not what other people expect. He finds the love in what he does, just to be that. Okay, Mary.
A warrior's not about perfection, or victory, or invulnerability. He's about absolute vulnerability.
This one just stopped me when I heard it. A warrior is not about perfection. A warrior is not about victory. A warrior is not about vulnerability. And first when I heard that, I was like, what? Okay, I'm not agreeing with the movie right now. And then he said, a warrior is about absolute vulnerability. And this is what Bill and I were talking about a month ago, and it's what I do in my work now, because my work changed about 3 years ago when I started doing different work on me. The sad and part that I hate about what really brings us present is we have to be absolutely, and Bill said, naked in our vulnerability. And what really annoys me about that, because I hate it myself, is that when we're spinning up here with all the trash and the shoulds in our head of who we are and how we identify and how we're going to be liked, included, cared for, appreciated, and accepted, under here is that we're protecting this, which is that vulnerable place that all the time feels empty and disregarded. And to have to give up the defenses that guard us from that and drop into abject vulnerability. I hate it. It hurts. And I'm not being euphemistic. It hurts. Because it's truly there. But guess what? You're acting this out every day to defend against this. And that's where when you drop into that vulnerability and really own it, you don't have to do the acting. And I'm not saying I'm there and perfect. I'm just saying I'm along my path like everybody else's. You start to witness the play more. I watch all the time. I started to cry a lot, and I was like, society isn't changing. I got to deal with a different reaction to the play I'm watching. Because you step into the audience and get to sit in the audience like you are and observe. And the play just makes me laugh because people are just appalling in their games to protect themselves from the awfulness they feel that they're guarded against. But when we drop into that, we have a deep sense of a hurt. But what comes from that is amazing. Not that the hurt goes away. It diminishes a little, but doesn't go away. And what shows up is what I truly want more of. You've heard me say this before, but I've become a broken record because this is where I live now. Because the deal is I can say it over and over again, but we're not there. So it's still peeling the onion of what I want more of. And what I want more of, because I grew up in lonely and a lot of shame. I was dyslexic, I had reading disorders, I was overweight. People thought I was just stupid and fat. Let me tell you, that wasn't fun growing up. And so what I want more of is love, nurturing, and a lot of hugs. You're in on that, you are in my world. And what I don't want anymore becomes just as clear. I don't want any more judgment, I don't want any more shame. I don't want anyone comparing me. Bhagavad Gita said, compare yourself to others and all you'll be is either, just went out of my head, vain or bitter. In comparison, we're only vain or bitter. There's no presence there. And so I don't want any more of that. And when someone starts to come at me with that, I teach my patients two things, if you remember everything else. One word is, it's unacceptable. There's not a lot people do with that. They look at you like, what? I go, it's unacceptable. And if they continue, or I just don't want to engage, the other thing I say is, I have no more interest in this conversation. I said this the last time Bill and I were here. But I repeat it a lot. I had a patient yesterday, Friday. She looked at me, serious type A, straight A, major athlete. She goes, I don't know what to say to these people. Because she's changed her definition of herself. She's a little insecure. And I said, just tell them it's unacceptable to talk to you that way. You're going to love this. She's decided to be a full-time mom and give everything to her kids. The problem is she's giving everything to her kids. I had to teach her a little more balancing. But this idiot, sorry for the judgment, but I get annoyed at that. I get annoyed at people's shame. I got my ego stuff still. This person in his 70s, 80s said to her, well, so what do you do now that all you have is children? And because she struggles, again, we give over our power. If we don't sit in our center of our hurt, and then someone tweaks us like that, and we have a little bit of that insecurity, we give him power. She didn't say anything to him. I said, really? You didn't say anything to him? I said, I would have told him that was unacceptable. She goes, oh my God, that would have been great. And I said, the other thing I would have said to him is, I'm no more use in a conversation with you. She goes, I'm going to use that. I said, please do. When you sit here, the vibration is like a litmus test. There's no wiggle room. I have no more use. I have no more of this. And the same thing on the other side. Somebody's loving, nurturing, that wiggle room goes, you're in. Please. Everyone knows I'm a hugger here. So, God, doing great on the time. So, let's finish up with the last part. But remember that it's not about perfection. It's not about victory. It's not about a sense of vulnerability, which is really turning our power over, but complete vulnerability. I can tell you I had all these things go on in my past. It was in the full history, but a little bit. Anybody feel I gave away my power? Anybody feel I'm being insecure and weak? Anybody feel that I'm ready to take a hit from you for being that? It's who I am. It's what I struggle with in terms of my emptiness and what I want more of and don't want any more of. And it's dead on clear. You hear it in my tone. It's not like, oh, I was like kind of insecure. No. And it's hard. I'm going to keep saying it's not easy. If you think it doesn't hurt to sit in some of that, it does. But it offers you being truly present in your truth. You're being what you want more, what you don't more, and it's empowered and clear, and it doesn't go away. Okay, Mary.
What if I can't do it?
That's the future. Throw it out.
Well, how would we start?
There isn't no starting or stopping. Only doing. Where are you?
Here.
What time is it?
Now.
What are you?
This moment.
Here, now, in this moment. Thank you.